guys, so today we're going to be talking about the expectancy violations theory. My name is Gina Roth and my partner is Mitchell Odekirk. Sorry about this, we really couldn't figure out how to do this, so this is the best option that we have. So to start off, I have a few examples that I want to talk about just kind of before we get into this. So these scenarios are just some random ones that I want you to think about how you would act in these situations. So if you were alone in someone's room or if you were at dinner with your family, you wouldn't be as outgoing and crazy as if you were with your friends. If you were at a party, it would be different than being at the library, as in sense of loudness and just your basic surroundings are basically different on how you're going to act. Here's some more examples on how, if you want to think about how you would expect someone else to act in these situations. So if they were in your room, you would expect them not to snoop, etc. If you were in your car, you would expect them to pick up their trash, be respectful, as if you were in that situation as well. So what is the expectancy violations theory? This is basically a theory of communication. Whenever you're talking with someone, it's the expected behaviors that you expect them to have based on your relationships that you have with them. The way someone responds to unanticipated violations of social norms. So if someone violates something that you weren't expecting them to do in a situation, then it's going to be a little bit awkward or whatever. Yeah. So the difference between positive violation and negative violation. So positive violation is when a behavior that someone does while you're talking with them goes beyond what you were expected, but in a positive way. So for example, if your significant other comes up and gives you a hug or a kiss out of nowhere, that's a positive violation because they're violating your personal space, but they're also doing it in a good way to show characters. Negative violation is when a behavior is present in a situation, but you weren't expecting the violation to occur from that person, so it's negatively affecting you. So an example could be your chemistry partner comes up to you and gives you a hug after your presentation. That's a little breaking the boundaries, awkward, you know? So to go along with personal space, you can see in this photo here about the different closeness that you're supposed to be with someone whenever you were talking with them based on the relationship that you guys already have formed. So personal space is expected based on your relationships. So here, personal intimate connections with your core family or your significant other is obviously closer to you than if someone was walking randomly on the street. You aren't going to act the same around them as if you're going to act around a complete stranger. People that have been violated many times by these personal spaces may become easily violated because they have had those bad encounters with people interrupting their personal space.
So the history of the expectancy violation theory, it was proposed by Judy Bergen in the late 1970s and continued through the 1980s and 1990s. It was originally called the nonverbal expectancy violations theory, but nonverbal was dropped because it didn't include all types of behavior that violate the expectancies. Although nonverbal expectancy is definitely part of the expectancy violation theory. So the three major factors is what we expect from the interaction, the violation of the social norms in the interaction, and the communicated reward valence of your interactions. So your expectations are dependent on the interaction, so what actually occurred with that person, and also it has to do with who you're talking to. So if you're familiar with that person or if they're a complete stranger, it's going to have a big impact on your interaction as a whole. And things like awkwardness and maybe rudeness would affect your expectation in a social instance. That's what I mean by what occurred. So there's two different expectations. There's predictive and prescriptive. Predictive, they're behavior and communication occurrences that you expect to happen in a situation or environment. So there's a certain way you expect someone to act at a funeral or a wedding. and that's what predictive expectation means. And then prescriptive expectations are how people actually display this behavior in communication. So the actual act of being rude or obnoxious or loud in a social instance, that would be prescriptive expectation. So the communicator reward valence is it's the evaluation you make about the person who committed a violation of expectancy. So when you're having a social interaction and someone does something or says something that is not part of your expectancy, then your communicator reward valence either goes up or down. It can have a positive or negative attribute brought on by the interaction, and then this actually shapes your view on that person moving forward in the future or toward that interaction in the future. And people tend to have similar factors and specifics on interactions as a whole. People's reward systems are very different, but when it comes to certain things like funerals and weddings, people kind of have a certain way that they expect people to behave, and that reward system is going to change based on if they're behaving poorly or good. That is it. If there's any questions, please let us know.